This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the Blue Wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show, brothers and sisters, Tuesday, February 25th. As always, your needy Muslim friend, hoping to be your MBFF, on Twitter, at Dean Obeidallah. Go to Facebook. I should just mention this for a second. Facebook.com/Dean of Radio. And I live stream this monologue there every day, and people put comments. And lately, as I mentioned, a lot of Trump supporters have been coming and putting comments. I'm not targeting them. I'm not recommending my video for them. I frankly don't even want to hear their comments on topics, just to be blunt about it. Who is recommending my video to them? I found this out from a Trump supporter who posted. Facebook. For some reason, Facebook is recommending my videos, which are for progressives and to get our base out and reach independents to support us, recommending it for Trumpers. And on some level, I have to ask myself, is Facebook trying to sow discord, knowing by recommending in the timeline my videos, which are critical of Trump, that Trumpers are going to come over and start spewing their point of view, and then progressives will fight back and forth? Is that Facebook's goal? And there's zero doubt Mark Zuckerberg wants Trump to win re-election, not because he likes Trump. I don't think he does at all. But he doesn't want regulations. And he knows if a Democrat wins, there'll be more regulations on Facebook. I wonder if that's part of it. Or it's just the algorithm go amok because I have Trump in the title a lot. I don't know. But Trumpers, if you're watching, this is not intended for you. Put your comment. You're welcome to. I don't care, but this is not for you. Tonight, big debate. Tonight's the last debate before not just Saturday's South Carolina contest, but Tuesday, a week from today, will be Super Tuesday. 14 states and District of Columbia. And it really will be a significant amount of delegates decided that day. So tonight's the last debate before that. We can call tonight's debate in advance the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. There's going to be a lot of gutting of people. At least that's what is expected. And we could be surprised because that might not happen. Bloomberg certainly will go after people. I don't know how good he is at going after people. And I don't know how he wasn't great at responding. I don't think Senator Warren's going to go after Bernie Sanders. I don't think Bernie's going after Liz Warren. It's a question of who goes after who, anything normal, anything new. We don't know. We'll find out tonight. But what I wish you would hear tonight so desperately from the Democrats are things in addition to distinguishing themselves from their fellow Democrats, because I understand they are running for the Democratic nomination and you have to show you're the best candidate. But in that, you can make the case by reminding Americans in the last 6 months, Black and Latino unemployment has gone up 10%. Except for my show, no one in the media is talking about it. Those are the numbers, folks. Black and Latino unemployment in the past 6 months have gone up 10%. Google Black and Latino unemployment. You will see it from the Trump administration's own numbers. Why is that not talked about? I don't know. Why is the fact that job growth in 2019 was the lowest since when? Since 2011. Since the end of the Great Recession. Why is that not talked about by the Democrats? And why doesn't our media talk about that? That's a bigger question for the media. Our Democrats should talk about it. Why we should hear tonight, last year, 2019, a spike in farm bankruptcies. It was the most bankruptcies by farmers since 2011. Why is that not talked about? That's basic stuff. And our GDP growth is lower than Obama's time. It is so slid under Trump. Those are things to talk about. But one thing that I really think they have to talk about, and this has to do with leadership, and it's Trump's reaction to the coronavirus. And not just reaction today in the last few weeks, but, and I'll give you the top line first and I'll get into it here. In 2019, Donald Trump's administration cut funding to a program that was to address the exact threat of coronavirus viruses that transmit from animals to humans that can cause a pandemic like we're facing now. And they cut it in 2019. Even though there were articles from that time warning Trump administration, don't cut this because you're making it more likely for a pandemic to happen, a global influenza, a global virus to spread, and they didn't care because Trump needed the money for his wall that he promised Mexico was going to pay for. And again, that's another thing Democrats should bring up. Donald Trump's number one promise in the 2016 campaign, he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. Is Mexico paying for it? No, you are. We are. That's who's paying for his wall over the objections of Congress. So he had to take money from different places. And one is he cut money, and I'll get into details, from articles from 2019, not new ones, but from then, warning him not to do this. And he did it. Because Trump has no foresight, no vision. It's about him. Everything is immediacy to this man. So what we know now is that there's been, today, if you didn't see it, stock market dropped almost 900 points again today. Yesterday, over 1,000 points. This is a tremendous sell-off in our market because of the jitters caused by the spreading coronavirus. It's going to affect commerce. China, it's affecting them. They're a big part of the supply chain for many businesses. But you're having other places, Italy, in the Middle East now. We'll go through some of the details. It's kind of, I'm not telling any of this to panic people. I'm giving you the facts. I do not want you to panic. But we should know the facts and what the risks are that are involved in all of this. But it comes down to Trump's leadership and lack thereof, making this even worse. So what we know now is that the coronavirus is now in 33 countries. 33 countries. Over 80,000 people have been sickened by it. Nearly 3,000 have died. Today was an alarming comment by the Center for Disease Control. Dr. Nancy Messonnier, the director for National Center for Immunization, said, and I'll just read her quote, point blank. Here's her quote from today, because then I'm going to get to the misinformation of the Trump administration afterwards. The Center for Disease Control said it's not so much of a question of if this will happen in this country anymore, but a question of when this will happen, speaking about an outbreak. She's going on to say, we are asking the American public to prepare for the expectation that this might be bad, close quotes. That was the warning. What did the Trump administration just a short time ago say? They put on Alex Azar, the Trump Health and Human Services Secretary, to say, we believe the immediate risk here in the United States remains low. Literally a campaign of misinformation. CDC, which is nonpartisan, part of the federal government, in the morning warning us it's coming, it's immediate, prepare. And by the afternoon, Trump doesn't like stocks going down. He sends out his HHS secretary to say there's no risk. This is off the charts. Look, everything that comes out of Trump's mouth is a lie, and everything from his administration is a lie as well. And these are things that are not games. There's lives involved in this. American lives are involved and it all began a few weeks ago with Donald Trump telling us nothing to worry about. Spring's coming. It'll burn the virus away. Here is from a few weeks ago. Here's number one to remind you of Donald Trump's stupidity.
Again, as I mentioned, by April or during the month of April, the heat, generally speaking, kills this kind of virus. So that would be a good thing.
The heat's going to kill this virus? This just in, Bahrain announced 9 new cases of the coronavirus today, bringing the total number of patients to 17. What's the temperature in Bahrain today? 86 degrees. 86 degrees, and it's spreading. No one knows. Trump could have been right, because seasonal flus, when the warm air comes and the warmth comes, it can contract. Nobody knew at the time, but there's Trump spewing misinformation. And now it's spreading across the Middle East. In Iran, people have died now in Iran from this. Now, today, Trump administration asked Congress for $2.5 billion to stop the spread of the virus. But they sent to Capitol Hill Chad Wolf, a Republican. He's the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, and Republican Senator John Kennedy. I'm going to play him grilling Chad Wolf and making it clear they do not believe the Trump administration is ready for this threat. And he's very concerned because this is transcending politics. These are people in our country. If there's really an outbreak, some are going to die. The mortality rate of this virus right now is 2 to 3%. That is about 20 times more lethal than the flu. Just so it's clear, this is not like the flu. It is 20 times more lethal than the flu, but not nearly as lethal as SARS, which was a 10% mortality rate. But here's Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, big-time Trump supporter. You all know him. And he's pressing Trump administration official Chad Wolf today on, how do you not know the answers to my questions about the threat posed to our nation? Here's clip number 3.
For being here. How many cases of coronavirus do we have right now in the United States?
Well, we have 14 cases plus an additional I believe it's 20 or 30 some odd cases that we have repatriated back into the U.S. from a number of cruise ships.
And how many are you anticipating?
Again, we're working with HHS to determine that.
How many are you anticipating?
We do anticipate the number will grow. I don't have an exact figure for you, though.
Do you have an estimate? Is someone modeling that? Do you have any way of guessing?
Again, HHS, through their medical professionals,
well, yes, sir, but you're head of Homeland Security,
yes, sir,
and your job is to keep us safe.
Yes, sir.
Do you know today how many the experts are predicting?
We only know that, again, we anticipate those numbers to grow in the U.S. That's why we're making sure that our operations, again, at our airports, land ports, and elsewhere are flexible.
But you can't tell us how many your models are anticipating.
No, Senator. Again, I would defer you to the Health and Human Services for that.
Okay. Don't you think you ought to check on that?
We will.
As the head of Homeland Security?
Absolutely. And again, we have task force members that are working this on every day.
I'm all for committees and task force.
So we're coordinating with them to make sure that our operation...
You're the secretary. I think you ought to know that answer.
I understand that.
Again, that was a Republican senator pressing Chad Wolf, a Trump administration official, because he was not at all happy. You heard that in his tone. That was today, just a few hours ago. This is not about politics. This is about lives. And let's hope the outbreak doesn't come here, or it can be contained. But here's where leadership of Donald Trump and his failures come into play. And this is not from articles today. This is from articles in October of last year, 2019, New York Times and Vox. And this was about Trump cutting the funding to federal government agency that would have dealt with preventing this kind of outbreak, a pandemic. But he cut it. And I'll read from the New York Times article, so it's not me spinning it, and from Vox. Here is October 2019, New York Times reported, the federal government is quietly shutting down a surveillance program for dangerous animal viruses that someday may infect humans. Ending the program, experts fear, will leave the world more vulnerable to lethal pathogens like Ebola and MERS that emerge from unexpected places, such as bat-filled trees, gorilla carcasses, and camel barns. The program known as PREDICT, that's what it was called, PREDICT, and run by the United States Agency for International Development. Goes on to say this project PREDICT was to speed up and organize the previously haphazard hunt for zoonotic diseases, those that jump from animals to humans. Because in recent years, scientists have developed many lethal viruses lurking in the wild and have determined they have come from animals. The Times points out the Ebola came from bats and apes. SARS came from cats in China. In South Asia, another disease that killed people, it's called Nipah virus, came from bats. Saudi Arabia, MERS, came from bats as well. These discoveries led to new ways of preventing spillovers of infections to human populations. Where does the coronavirus come from, folks? It comes from a live animal market in China. This is what this program was designed to do. And you know what? This program was supported enthusiastically, as the New York Times notes in October 2019, not now, enthusiastically by George W. Bush and Barack Obama. It's only Trump that cut it because it's part of his war on science. They don't believe in climate change. They don't want to invest in this because Trump needs the money for a wall on the southern border, which is not going to keep out a disease. As Vox wrote at the time, the end of the PREDICT project is a symptom of a bigger problem. The U.S. government isn't taking the risk of pandemics as seriously as it should be, and it isn't investing enough in spreading the expertise and best practices that might be needed in the case of a global pandemic. Again, this is from October. They were warning the Trump administration, if you make this cut, you might have an outbreak, a pandemic, sweeping the nation or the world that we could have been involved in containing or lessening the spread. But Trump didn't care. Ron Klain, the former White House Ebola response coordinator, said, again, not now. This isn't politics now. This is October 2019. He said, it's the prospect of another such pandemic, not a nuclear war or a terrorist attack or a natural disaster, that poses the greatest risk of massive casualty event in the United States. It's like you're reading in a movie a smoking gun from before, and you're like, oh my God, why didn't anybody listen? Like after 9/11, and there was the memo, Bin Laden wants to hijack planes and slam it into buildings. And like, oh yeah, that's kind of, should have warned that, should have taken that into account there, huh? This is what they're saying in October, November. The president of EcoHealth Alliance, again in November, warning that this program, PREDICT, was an approach to heading off pandemics. Instead of sitting there waiting for them to emerge and then mobilizing, adding, that's expensive. That's why Trump needs $2.5 billion today as opposed to hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this program that they cut the money for. Because again, a lack of leadership, priorities that view science as questionable, and the war on science spills over into this area. That's why the stock market is down now. 800 points today, almost 900 today, 1,000 yesterday. And what did Trump say yesterday? He tweets, "The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. We are in contact with everyone in all relevant countries. Adds, stock market starting to look very good to me." It was dropping yesterday through the roof, and he's just lying, misinformation. Today it dropped 900 plus points. And then today Trump had this to say in India. Here's clip number 2. This is Trump earlier today.
China is working very, very hard. I've spoken to President Xi, and they're working very hard, and they've had a rough patch. And I think right now they have it. It looks like they're getting it under control more and more. Let's see how it all works out, but I think it's going to work out fine.
It's going to work out fine, folks, because I live in a bubble and there's no germs where I live. Here's the reality. The new reporting, if you go to Washington Post, it's right on the front page, is live updates. In addition to the new case in Bahrain I mentioned, where it's 86 degrees, so the warm air did not stop it, it's spreading it. And this is not to scare people. This is to give everyone a sense of what's going on in the world so we understand it. Iran confirms 95 new cases with 15 deaths. South Korea reported 144 new cases of coronavirus, bringing its total to nearly 1,000. Italy, from yesterday to today, and this is stunning, a 45% increase in virus outbreak in one day. That's alarming. I have to be honest. Not panicky. That's alarming. And the reason that's happening is because nobody knew it was there yet, the virus. So many people, they say it's up to 2 weeks later, exposure to symptoms. If no one knows it's in your country, everyone's going to work, normal things, spreading it left and right. And that's why it's exploding in Italy right now. Iran, it's also reported cases in Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's going through the Middle East. We have no idea how this is going to end. Again, for some, it's no more than the flu. And thank goodness for that. For some, it's just sickness. It's respiratory. It's not head cold. It's respiratory. It's in your lungs. Some, it's no problem. I don't say this to alarm people. Some of the people dying are not just older people or infants. They are people in midlife who are healthy. In Iran, the deputy director of health died. Apparently he died today. He told me, I came in, I knew he was sick, but Michelangelo told me he died. In China, the doctor who discovered this, who was a doctor in his 30s or 40s, died. The head of the hospital director died. So this is just to make it clear, this is a risk. And perhaps, and I don't know for sure, but perhaps if Donald Trump didn't cut the funding to that program designed for this very thing. And again, when you read the words of the warnings in October, urging the Trump administration not to cut this funding, it's as if they were telling us this is what's going to happen, what we're seeing lay out in front of us, where you had Ron Klain, the Ebola response coordinator, saying it is the prospect of another such pandemic, not a nuclear war or a terrorist attack or a natural disaster, that poses the greatest risk of a massive casualty event in the United States. And Vox writing, the U.S. government isn't taking the risk of pandemics as seriously as it should be, and it isn't investing enough in spreading the expertise and best practices that might be needed in the case of a global pandemic. Trump was warned. His administration was warned, and he cut the funding anyway. And now we are going to pay for this with our tax dollars, and sadly, if there's an outbreak, let's hope there's not, some will pay with their lives. And what is Trump tweeting about this afternoon? Non-stop tweeting and retweeting about Roger Stone. Just tweeted 3:30 today. The stock market's down 900 points. Death toll is climbing around the world. Donald Trump's tweeting. I'll read his tweet. There has rarely been a juror so tainted as the forewoman in the Roger Stone case. Look at her background. She was never revealed her hatred of Trump and Stone. She was totally biased, as the judge was. Roger Stone wasn't even working on my campaign. Miscarriage of justice. Sad to watch. There's a worldwide coronavirus going on that the CDC warned us today it was coming to the country, our nation, inevitably. And Trump is more concerned with defending his rich, corrupt friends than tweeting and talking about his concerted strategy to keep us healthy and safe. This is Donald Trump. This is the man who's in the White House. This is the man running for re-election. It comes down to this simple thing. Do you want 4 more years of this? This ineptitude, this lack of leadership? On top of everything else, the bigotry, the racism and sexism, everything to him was instantaneous. I'm going to cut the program. I don't care. Cut the funding. I need money for my wall. So I hope the Democrats bring this up tonight, debate. That's what I really hope. I hope they bring up this. I hope they bring up the economic issue. But this is about leadership. And I hope they bring up, and they won't because it's too nuanced to get into. I understand. It's debate. You get a minute and a half. October, Trump was warned, don't cut the funding to this program that oversees this very thing that lessens the impact of a pandemic and helps prevent it. I can't tell you if it would have prevented this very thing, but that's what it was designed to do, and he cut it, and it's gone, that program. And now we are more vulnerable as a result. And the world is more vulnerable as a result. And that's where we stand today. So let's take a break. We're going to have a guest early, Christian Picciolina. He's going to be here. He has a new book he's a former white supremacist. We're going to have him in studio in a few minutes. We'll take calls before he gets here. Second hour, Danny Savalas is here, and then the debate. The debate's going to play right here live. You don't have to change the channel at all. Be right back, though, with more of the Dino Vidala Show. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to